feel like hearing your voice in stereo is a very specific experience. Not always a good one. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for taking a little time out of your day. We're here today because I believe account-based marketing is more than a tactic. It's a reimagining how B2B marketing creates value. And if you have the right technology, data, and cross-functional alignment, you can fundamentally change marketing's relationship with revenue. At Securian Financial, we've been building our ABM strategy over the last 4 years, and we're here to tell you really candidly a little bit today about how we did it. Strategy, execution, change management, some of the pitfalls. Oh, and I think we can stay on that first slide. Did I move it? There we go. Some of the pitfalls and everything in between. A little context for you that will be important in the conversation. Securian is a Fortune 500 financial services company. We start our ABM program up in our employee benefit solution space that sells group life and supplemental health insurance to Fortune 1000 employers. Think large buying committees, complex sales. Our sales cycle on the short side usually takes about a year and averages around 3. And now that I've told you all that, I probably should tell you who I am. I'm Emma Thomas, the Director of Marketing at Securian, who brought ABM into our business. And I'm joined today by 2 of my colleagues who were instrumental in its success. Mike Bentley, he's our ABM marketing consultant, and he drove much of the strategic execution of what we put in market, and he'll be sharing about that. And Sam Archbold, he's our new head of marketing technology, and he will be critical in further scaling and continuing the enthusiasm around the program. So to paint you a little bit of a picture, let me share a story that I'm sure everyone in this room is very familiar with. When you are a product or category manager or in charge of marketing, we often hear really consistently from our sales teams the same thing. We need to increase deal size, we need to expand into new or adjacent markets, and we need to increase velocity. All incredibly legitimate business imperatives, especially in competitive markets. And how does marketing typically respond? More, right? We're going to give you more people to our website, more leads in the funnel, we're going to deliver more MQLs because we've been conditioned that volume is the playbook here. Unfortunately, this often leads to misaligned priorities, frustrated sales, and unclear ROI. Because fundamentally, what sales is asking us for is deeper strategic account penetration and deal velocity. And what marketing is delivering is a higher quantity of leads that may or may not ladder up to those accounts. So we noticed we were fundamentally measuring our success by different metrics, and that was leading to a problem. Simultaneously, a few years ago, our leadership gave us very aggressive growth mandates that marketing and sales needed to partner together to achieve. So we knew we had to reassess from the ground up our targeting, our measurement, and our partnership with sales. And that was really the catalyst that began our ABM journey. And the first thing that was important when we were thinking about shifting how we went to market, it seems foundational, but it was really critical, and this is what I think was fundamental to getting executive buy-in and ultimately funding, was shifting from a signals-based approach to an outcome-based approach. If it's helpful, I used a return on objective model that maybe you'd be interested in. But there's a lot of buzz around signals right now, right? Because technologies are promising hundreds of thousands of signals that will guide your go-to-market strategy. And intuitively, in our age of AI, that makes sense because we think AI can connect those signals really fast. But I would maybe encourage you to be healthily skeptical because a lot of those signals is third-party intent data, which can or can't be accurate, right? They're behavioral signals, which are really easy to misinterpret, or they're activity signals, but it's not necessarily activity that's tied to purchase intent or purchase activation. And then what we do is we take all those signals, we dump them on our marketers or we dump them on our sellers, and it creates confusion, right? We overwhelm them with all these KPIs, but it's hard to activate, and what does it really mean? So it's marketing 101. We needed to shift our language and our paradigm to what actually mattered. If you start by identifying the outcome, and the trick here is not the marketing outcome, the business outcome, the thing you're actually trying to solve, and then you work backwards to define which signals are relevant to that outcome, what buying committees are actually engaged in those signals, and what actions are driving progress, you can shift your narrative when you're talking about your marketing strategy. And we found this really powerful with our executives because fundamentally we were just translating to their language. So once we got all that, conceptually aligned. We had a problem. We knew we needed to change our perspective, and we shifted our framework. We got started. How did we start? Super small, laughably small, horrifyingly small, maybe by today's standards. And it was so small because when we decided we were going to take an account-based experience approach, it did not come as a top-down mandate. It did not come with a budget or a fancy RFP. It was a grassroots effort at a Fortune 500 company. It came with me, my scrappy and intelligent team, and we sort of yanked sales with us, kicking and screaming a little bit, admittedly, in the beginning. And we got really clear. The first thing we said is, what's our objective? What we measured was RFP lift, because that directly aligned with what sales wanted, which was deal volume and velocity. So we're like, okay, we're going to start there. We sell through intermediaries. Let's do an RFP lift. We started by doing everything manual account identification, manual content gen across every single channel, manual insight gathering. It was a labor of sweat, equity, and love. And we started by targeting just one broker firm. And you can see we did it for 4 years because, as I shared you, we have an annualized business cycle. You do it once, is it a fluke? You do it twice, you think, okay, what can we measure and scale? And you start to sort of build that. And we went from an 11% RFP lift to, in our junior year, when we started to really get it right, 300% RFP lift. And at the tail end of year 3 and year 4, we thought, okay, we've done this enough and it's been repeatable and there's been a clear demonstration of ROI that we need to scale. And the way we need to scale is with a technology partner and increase data and insights. And we felt ready to ask for an investment contribution from our executives to do that. That's what the graph right next door is showing. Our original thought was, we'll just do this with more of our brokers, right? We'll go from 1 to 35. We'll do it consistently, and that's the scale story we're going to tell. Spoiler alert, when we got a vendor and we got the data, we pivoted. We took a different approach. But this was the pitch I gave to our executives to get funding. And if I were you, my takeaway on this slide was, I didn't come to our executive team asking them to bet on a concept that I thought would work out, and here are the proposed dividends it might pay. I came to them asking to scale a proven ROI directive solution. It's a much easier way to get investment, right? Because you've shown them through a labor of love, it can be done, and it probably can be done at scale. And it's easier to sort of close that business case, if you will. As we went into vendor selection, something that Mike, Sam, and I wanted to make sure we told you is one of the first things we did is say, where are there gaps today with our manual effort? What don't we know that we think would be really critical to scaling? And what emerged for us was account identification was really challenging, and we called it the dark funnel. So going back, we had all of these signals, right? We had click-through rates, we have web engagement, we had paid ad impressions, paid ad clicks, all of these signals, but they were at the individual level, and we couldn't aggregate those or stitch them together in a meaningful way to understand the account behavior. So we had all these volume metrics, all these marketing KPIs that we all know and love, but it was hard to tell a meaningful sales story with those. So this idea of shining a light on the dark funnel to start to stitch together those signals with an outcome in mind became really important to us. Who could help us de-anonymize what we needed to know and understand where they were in funnel stage and buying intent, so we could think about strategic account activation, right message, right place, relevancy, all of that stuff we know we should do, but it's hard because the data is really opaque today. What this slide is showing you here is a little bit about our customer buying journey and where those technologies kind of sit with that buying journey. And the point is, no vendor works in isolation. So if you don't have a way to coordinate or orchestrate your marketing tech stack, it won't work. Because when Mike talks to you a little bit about how we actually activated the program, the technologies that are activating are different technologies. And in one woman's opinion, that I've been asked to give it, technology orchestration is as important as vendor selection. And it's really hard to do in a matrixed organization, in a big organization. I'm seeing nods, like that's a lived pain. In our grassroots attempt, my team did it. Him, that guy, he was up. And of course, we had many talented technologists who actually made it come true, but you had to have sort of the buy-in and the relationships to get people to understand how these technologies are all going to work together so they're meaningful in market. What are the strengths of each technology? Where are they deficient? Why do you use when, what? And importantly, you have to be able to articulate that to executives outside of marketing, or it's really hard to gain the funding at the level you typically need funding to bring in a new technology. That's sort of the spirit of this slide for me. Sam, as the czar of all things tech stack, did I get anything wrong?
That was beautiful.
Okay, I'll pay you later. Thank you. Okay, so with that, that's kind of conceptually how we got to ABM, conceptually how we got executive buy-in and funding, and I'll let Mike talk about some of the fun stuff.
All right. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share a few highlights of how we activated our ABM data and platform. So one way to think about our ABM platform is that every interaction has value. It's not just about one marketing campaign or sales touch. It's everything leading up to and after. The platform allows us to measure many interactions and weigh high-value engagements. This approach lets us move beyond our traditional attribution model, which was limited in what we could measure and who we could see was doing what. Instead, we're recognizing that a prospect's journey is made up of dozens of meaningful signals, each of which tells us something about their interest, intent, and readiness to buy. Really gets us closer to that one lens view of our customers. So the demand-based platform is robust and has many capabilities, but one of the most valuable for us is how it identifies companies that are actively in market for our offerings. The dashboard up on screen here highlights two key data sources, intent data and digital engagement. So the intent data provides insights into when a company is researching topics around our offerings. So we were able to build specific keyword sets with our products along with competitor info. So imagine now when the user's using Google or Bing and searches for something like top group life insurance providers or supplemental health insurance, the tool is able to capture that and we can see who's doing that. At the same time, demand-based also de-anonymizes web traffic on our site. So we're able to monitor and assign an engagement score when they're visiting certain pages or they're downloading high-value assets. Together, this gives us a lot clearer signal of who's showing buying intent and helps us prioritize our outreach, whether that's through a personalized marketing campaign or a targeted sales follow-up. All right, so one of our main goals in marketing is to increase engagement with our content, and personalization plays a huge role in that. It not only boosts interaction, but it makes the experience more relevant and meaningful for each visitor. So building on the intent and engagement insights that we just talked about, demand-based also gives us rich firmographic data. So things like industry, company size, and location. So for the example on the screen here, we deployed a targeted display ad for accounts in the education sector. To complement the ads, when someone from the industry visits our website, they're served up a customized content section regarding the crucial role of our products for that industry. As we've seen a lot of successes with this, we've been able to build this out for many other different use cases as well. With this campaign, we saw over a 20% engaged visit rate, which is more than double what we see on just a general display ad campaign. All right. So we jokingly refer to this next initiative as the Why Can't We Be Friends campaign. So we partner with our sales teams and use demand-based insights to select benefit brokers that we know are in the employee benefit space, but they rarely send us opportunities or RFPs. This was a highly personalized omni-channel campaign that included display ads, emails, customized webs, and a direct mail. Sorry. I'm really relying on my speaker notes here as I don't do a lot of speaking here, so bear with me. Thank you. So we saw really great success with this campaign as it resulted in over 90% lifted rate. The lifted rate is an important metric that I really like to highlight. And this is basically showing the percent of target accounts that have more engagement on our website during the campaign period compared to the baseline of 30 days prior to the start of the campaign. We also saw a 26% engaged visit rate on our site, and most importantly, we saw a 47% increase in RFPs from these firms. It's metrics like these that have really helped us show the value with our business partners. I'm going to pass it back to Emma to talk a little bit more about our results.
Sure, great. I just hang here. So this slide I wanted to show you, sometimes I call this our money slide, figuratively and literally, because this is the slide that we keep when we're talking at the executive level to keep enthusiasm and funding, quite frankly, for the strategy alive and well, because it's that idea of this return on objective model and translating what we're doing into meaningful business outcomes. I'll walk you through it really fast. This is for just a little under 2 years that we've scaled the program with demand-based. For purposes of today, I combine the metrics. But what it's telling you is to our web property within the greater Securian.com website, we're in the last year and a half, 2 years, we're seeing about 400,000 unique visitors, and this is where we drive most of our content. What demand-based is able to do is help us de-anonymize about 22,000 accounts, and then we can start to stitch those insights together to be meaningful. We now know we're sitting at about 20,000 de-anonymized accounts that have hit our web property, right? So a deeper level of engagement. From there, we selected about 3,500 accounts that we decided, because of their engagement, funnel stage, other leading indicators, were appropriate targets to be served an ad like the ones Mike just shared with you. And because we all know all media buying desks aren't created equal, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but these are served specifically with the demand-based placed ad. That converted into 363 RFPs. Again, we're in the jumbo enterprise space, so that's meaningful volume. 61 of those closed won. But here's what execs care about. Those 363 RFPs represented over $1.2 billion in potential premium, and the closed one that we helped influence, hit the button, was $171 million new premium, which is a tantamount to revenue in our business on our books. So at the aggregate, when you show this to executives, there is sustained enthusiasm and funding from your program. And because I saw some people perking up when Mike was talking ads, I did poll if these are kind of nice metrics if you're trying to justify paid ad spend. 6.5% of accounts that received a targeted demand-based ad impression converted versus just 1.6 of the total demand-based identified population where we didn't serve the targeted impression. And those are higher rates than you'll see in other media placement desks, if you will. So that's helped me explain to executives the value of paid media on pipeline velocity. That's why we wanted to show you this slide today.
All right, well, we painted a pretty rosy picture here so far, but we've also had our fair share of challenges, especially as we try to scale ABM. So our first challenge is really around data integrity, and I think that's probably true for a lot of financial services company, but it might even been worse for us starting out, as we had account records in multiple systems. Sales was using spreadsheets, and we had inconsistent data in Salesforce. It took a little bit of convincing and time, but we were eventually able to clean things up by doing quarterly data audits, and we really partnered closely and have feedback loops with our sales and sales enablement teams, which has helped clean up our data accuracy rates considerably.
Still not perfect, though. Let me be clear.
Never will be perfect, probably, but a lot better. One of the biggest hurdles out of the gate was really sales adoption and utilization. I think right away there's like, well, so now I have another dashboard to check. What am I supposed to do with this? To help alleviate that, we embedded the insights that we get from our ABM platform right into Salesforce to meet them where they're at. And also, we had joint territory planning sessions to really walk through and try to help them digest the data of what we're showing. And because of this led now to a 70% usage of our weekly usage of the dashboards, because they can see the value and it's part of their regular workflow. The last challenge really is proving ROI. Amit mentioned earlier, is we have a long sales cycle of 6 to 18 months, so it makes it really difficult to show marketing impact on those final sales. But by implementing some of the account level engagement scoring we showed and pipeline influence reporting, we've really been able to connect marketing activity to those business outcomes, helping us maintain executive and sales buy-in for a couple of years now. So we've definitely had challenges along the way, and we'll probably run into more. But I do feel like this program has really helped strengthen the partnership with marketing and our sales team.
Nice. What's next, Sam?
Yeah.
What is the future?
What is the future? So I am the newest member on the panel here to Securian. I've been about half a year now. So as I've come in, leading the MarTech and Ops group, I've been lucky enough to see the successes that Mike and Emma have been able to do, as well as have for a kind of a future thinking approach to setting up our roadmap. So I figured I'd share a few insights into some of the areas that we're currently looking at and exploring in context of our MarTech as well as our other pieces of data.
Okay.
So just from an AI perspective, right, we are still in the, I'd say, infancy stage of trying to think about how to apply this in use cases. Our leadership at Securian has been very great in context of providing training and education to the whole organization, and we've been able to do that this year. And thinking about how we use ChatGPT and Copilot internally for operational pieces. we're starting to look at it from a MarTech perspective in each of our platforms, as well as holistically with agentic and all these pieces that we might be able to consider, but we haven't necessarily tried to activate anything in market yet. But I think the challenge for us in looking at all these vendors, like I'll pick on AEO, GEO, is it's not all it's not apples to apples. It's apples, oranges, and watermelons, and you've got service and different sorts of new vendors that are coming out, and we're trying to do our due diligence to think about what all those pieces are, and as we continue to think about that, we'll start to move forward on some of those. From a content perspective, what's been really great, especially with scaling from an ABM perspective, is looking at our content supply chain and looking at ways in which we can help our designers sort of enable them with better capabilities from a generative AI perspective, as well as our marketers and our sales folks in terms of getting content out and to the right people at the right time. So we're migrating to the cloud. We're spending some investment there to make sure we can start to use. We have AEM for our content management system, so we're trying to figure out ways in which you can leverage new capabilities like the Content Hub as an example. So trying to think about ways that generative AI can help us scale. And that ties into orchestration a little bit. So going from leads to really buying group orchestration, I think is front and center for us. And as you think about the creative element to that, how do you scale the creative and actually get that out in market? That's where some of that migration dollars is going to help us with from a content side, as well as getting that in other areas. We've been looking at additional channels too. So SMS, podcasts, audio are all things that we're being asked to kind of look at and consider. And so as orchestration comes more to life, we've got more exciting, I'd say, opportunities there. We do leverage Workfront as well, which is I'd say it's a really awesome tool in context of how we've got it set up to help us automate workflows internally. We're also starting to think about orchestration from a customer experience perspective. So ties into the data side of things. We're considering looking at, from a CDP perspective, we're looking at all these things to help us sort of create better infrastructure to help us execute those segmented campaigns and help with the buying group orchestration side of things. So, but the data side, we have a lot of, it's not perfect, as I don't think it is anywhere, but we've got to really focus on hygiene and unification as well. So, I think at the end state, really, kind of in a nice little visual on this next slide, Emma, would be just how we're leveraging AI throughout the end-to-end process of our campaign execution, and thinking about it not just in campaigns, but really customer journey orchestration, in how we, from intake to optimizing campaign and market. So I think that's ideally where we're trying to go. Try to slam a little bit of that in there, just to save a few minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
But we've got a few takeaways too.
Yeah, I can wrap us up, and then I think they cut us off right at the time, but we'll try to save a minute for question and answers. My hope for you is, if you take away anything from our short time together, is prove your model before you ask for money. I mean, just really take the time to put the sweat equity in so you have a ROI-centered value proposition that was really successful for us. Translate your work into business outcomes. That's marketing 101 and something we fail to do, right? We have this hubris of all of our marketing metrics, and that's the language we get stuck in when we need to go back to the business objectives and speak their language. And finally, while innovation and the future of AI, it is shiny and important. From my perspective, integration is key. No platform succeeds in isolation. So if you're standing up an enterprise program, be it ABX, ABM, or something else, really think how your tech stack works together, and do the legwork to make that work in harmony. It will be to your benefit. And it's no small amount of legwork, no matter how mature you are in the data perspective. So with that, I think we have a whole 2 minutes, and we would love to know what questions you have, if any. Please. Oh, competitor. Sure, I can start, but feel free to chime in. I think the pitch is really business saliency and alignment because often if you actually ask sales how they feel about your MQLs and you get someone who's going to be honest with you, I think it's a mixed bag at best, right? It's to really deliver qualified leads that are good enough to convert to SQLs and then activate on. So the shift is all about account penetration. We're trying to arm you salespeople with the right thing. That's the reason for being in a product or category marketing. So I think if you can anchor to that core, it's really powerful. And then getting your fellow marketers on board, bribe them, give them a cup of coffee, I don't know, whatever the cultural dynamic is there. I'm a big believer in omni-channel, so we started small and focused from an account penetration perspective, but everywhere from a channel perspective. And don't let direct mail get a bad rap. It's breakthrough in days where our email inboxes are bursting at the seams. So I think omni-channel is the key to message saliency.
Well said.
Well said.
I have them trained well. Does someone else have a question? Okay, if you're a competitor I like, we can talk more after, and I can give you some other pro tips. With that, thank you so much for your time and attention. Feel free to grab us in the hallway, and we hope you found some value.
Thank you.